Willa Castellanos stood in the clearing staring at her truck, and her stomach dropped straight through the ground. All 4 tyres were shredded, vicious, deep gashes like some giant animal had just ripped them to confetti. The hood was bent in two, like something incredibly heavy had been sitting there, waiting for her. She'd packed her gear at dawn with shaking hands, desperate to escape. But she wasn't going anywhere. Her sanctuary had just become a cage, and the monster was holding the key. Welcome to Lady E's Dark Tales. I'm Rex Barker. That was Willa's worst moment, or so she thought at the time. Turns out being trapped was just the beginning. Let me tell you how she ended up in those woods in the first place, and what was waiting for her in the shadows. Alright, so Willa Castellanos was 34, fiercely independent, and she was feeling pretty beaten up by the world after a nasty breakup. The woods around a remote lake in Texas were supposed to be her escape. She was a wildlife photographer, and she'd planned this whole solo trip to a remote area to take pictures of migrating golden eagles. It was her happy place, and for the first 2 days, it was perfect. You know the vibe, crisp air, huge blue sky, quiet. She was totally in her element. Like always when she went into the wilderness, she tucked her grandmother's old leather pouch into her camera bag, the one filled with white ash that was supposed to ward off evil. It was a habit she'd picked up after her grandmother died, this little ritual of bringing her along on every trip. Willa didn't really believe in the protection part, but it made her feel less alone out there. That's why on the 3rd day, what she saw was so jarring. She was tracking what she thought was a nesting site when she saw a coyote. But here's the thing. It was big. I mean unnaturally big. Like wolf-sized, but all stretched and wrong, with proportions that just made her skin crawl. It stood at the edge of a clearing, its fur all mangy, and it was just watching her. She's a professional. She's seen hundreds of coyotes, but this was different. She raised her camera to get a shot, and in the blink of an eye, it just vanished back into the shadows. Over the next couple of days, things got way creepier. The animal, this thing, started showing up in impossible places. Willa would see it on a ridge a mile away, and then literally minutes later, catch a flicker of it at the edge of her camp. And then all the other animals just went silent. The birds, the deer, gone. It was like a blanket of heavy, watchful dread had fallen over the woods. Then came the eyes. It was dusk and she was cleaning her camera gear when she got that feeling. That primal gut punch feeling that you are being hunted. She looked up, and there it was, not even 50 yards away, not even trying to hide. And its eyes, they weren't animal eyes, they weren't just reflecting the light. They were intelligent. They were ancient and filled with this cold, calculating evil that looked almost human. And the worst part, it seemed to be enjoying how terrified she was. That night's sleep was a definite no-go. She just sat in her tent, clutching a hunting knife, her heart about to beat out of her chest. Every snap of a twig, every rustle was him. And just before dawn, the real psychological games began. She heard a voice, a woman's voice calling her name. It said, "Willa, honey, are you there?" Her blood ran ice cold. It was her mother's voice. Her mother, who had died from cancer 5 years earlier. And it wasn't just the voice, it was the exact, soft, concerned way she used to talk to Willa as a kid. I mean, can you even imagine? She knew it was a trick, she knew it was impossible, but hearing that sound in the middle of nowhere, it shattered her. Then the voice got more desperate, mimicking the wet, gasping breaths of her mother's final, pain-filled days. It was a cruel, twisted performance designed to break her mind, and that's when she finally understood. No predator would waste this much energy on psychological torture unless the fear itself was the point. This wasn't some animal hunting for its next meal. It was hunting her for sport, feeding on her terror like it was the main course. The next morning she was done. After a night of pure terror, listening to that thing circle her tent, hearing her dead mother's voice begging for help. Willa was running on nothing but adrenaline and desperation. She threw her gear into her pack, her hands shaking so violently she could barely clip the buckles. Her fingers were numb from gripping the hunting knife all night. The plan was simple. Get to the truck and drive until this nightmare was just a speck in her rearview mirror. But when she stumbled into the clearing where she'd parked 3 days ago, back when this was supposed to be a peaceful retreat, her stomach dropped straight through the ground. All 4 tyres were destroyed. Not just flat, shredded. Vicious, deliberate gashes ripped through the rubber, like something had used its claws methodically, taking its time, making sure she saw exactly what it had done. Strips of tyre hung in tatters. The rims sat directly on the dirt. The hood of the truck was bent inward too. The metal dimpled and warped like something incredibly heavy had perched there for hours, watching the path back to her tent. Waiting. The paint was scratched, long, deep gouges that looked disturbingly like claw marks. She stood there for a long moment, her brain refusing to process what she was seeing. This wasn't random animal damage. This was a message. This was intentional. She was trapped. Her sanctuary had become a cage, and the monster was holding the key. For the next 48 hours, Willa was basically a mouse in a maze, and the cat was getting bored of just watching. It wanted to play. During the day, it was a ghost. She'd see it for a split second. A deer whose legs bent the wrong way with a sickening crack, or a golden eagle perched on a branch that should have snapped under its impossible weight, its head twisting a full 360 degrees to stare right at her with those same hateful eyes. The nights were pure, uncut horror. It would circle her tent, its footsteps a slow, heavy drumbeat of dread. It would whisper to her in voices it stole from her memories, her ex-boyfriend, a childhood friend, and always her mother. It would use their voices to promise her she was safe. That help was coming, and then it would all melt away into this deep, guttural, inhuman laughter that echoed in the dark. By morning she was a wreck, dehydrated, sleep-deprived, running on nothing but fear. She just knew, she wouldn't survive another night. And in her delirium, her mind went to her grandmother, who always believed in spirits and curses. She used to keep a small pouch of ceniza blanca, white ash, by the door for protection, saying it created a boundary evil couldn't cross. It was folklore, a superstition. But Willa was desperate, so with shaking hands she dug through her camera bag until she found it, her grandmother's leather pouch. She took her hunting knife and carved a circle in the dirt around her tent. With trembling hands she poured a thin, fragile line of white ash from the pouch, praying to anyone or anything that might be listening. And just as total darkness fell, he appeared. Not as an animal this time. He stood just outside the circle as a man, tall and skeletal, with skin stretched so tight over his bones it looked like it might split. He looked maybe late 50s, but his eyes were just these black pits of ancient, bottomless hate. He was a naaldlooshii, a skinwalker, and he was standing right outside her fragile circle of ash, staring at her with those bottomless black eyes, about to test whether her desperate gamble would save her life or just delay the inevitable. The second his foot hit the ash, he recoiled like he'd been electrocuted. His face twisted into a snarl. A voice dry and raspy like dead leaves didn't speak. It just appeared inside her head. It said, "You think that can stop me?" She croaked out, "It's holding you, isn't it?" She forced herself to name it. She told him she knew what he was. His form flickered, shifting between the man, the coyote, the twisted deer. He said he would wait, that her little circle wouldn't last forever, that he would have her fear, and then her flesh. This was it. Willa had nothing left to bargain with, so she focused every last shred of willpower she had and projected a thought: "Leave me be, and I will leave this place. I won't speak your name. This is your territory. I will never come back." He stopped pacing. The voice in her head was cold with amusement. He asked if she was proposing a truce. Then he told her, "Oh, little mouse, you are not in a position to offer a truce." But he didn't try to cross the line again. He just sat there right on the other side of the ash and watched her all night without blinking. It was the most terrifying night of her life, but she had survived. At dawn, he was gone. Willa ran. She ran for miles until she hit a paved road and flagged down a tourist who probably thought they'd found a ghost. She never told the police the real story. I mean, how could you? They said she was just a disoriented hiker suffering from exposure. She moved away, but she couldn't bring herself to go too far. Something about the deal had bound her to the place. Like leaving Texas entirely would break the truce, and he'd come hunting again. So she stayed on the edges, close enough to honour her word. It's weird, right? It's like she's tied to that place now. Her house sits on the edge of one of those new housing developments that's slowly eating away at the wilderness. And their deal holds. She doesn't go into the woods, she doesn't say his name out loud. And he seems to respect that boundary. But she knows he's there. Some nights, her security cameras will trigger, picking up motion at the far edge of her yard, where the manicured lawn meets the dark, tangled tree line. You can never see it clearly on the footage. It's just a flicker, a shadow that's a little too tall, a shape that isn't quite right. It's him, reminding her that he is patient, reminding her that the deal she made with the devil that hunts those woods is a very, very fragile one, and that he is simply waiting. Well, that's where Willa's story stands today. So tell me, what would you do if you found yourself face to face with something that shouldn't exist? Would you run, or would you try to make a deal? If you've ever had an experience out in the middle of nowhere that you just can't explain, something that just felt wrong, drop it in the comments below. And if stories about the things that lurk in the dark corners of our world intrigue you, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss what's coming for you next. And remember, some deals aren't meant to be broken, because the things we bargain with in the shadows are far more patient than we'll ever be.